everyone, welcome to the awesome day of FileMaker training. Sorry, we're all kind of doing this backwards at 500 miles an hour. I want to welcome you to FM Trainer TV, where every day is a great day to learn about the FileMaker platform. So today is an open conversation about relationships and questionable relationships and how to maintain a positive relationship with your FileMaker file or your spouse or your cat. I can help you with cats. I cannot help you with dogs. So let's talk about the upcoming broadcast schedule real quick, and then I'm open for questions from some of you today. I have some stuff from Margaret that I'm going to show you over here Margaret's been doing a lot of intermediate level stuff, and she's been having these discoveries along the way because she has this discovery where all through the training, I didn't emphasize something or repeat something enough, or I maybe implied it, or I thought all of you understood it. And I realized that there is a gaping discrepancy in my training. And so today is it's like I'm here to clean up the mess day is what this is. But I'm not going to call it that. So it's all about how you people haven't been listening to me very well. But at the end of the day, truly, I probably didn't do a good job as I should have. So open-ended questions today on the relationship management. Yesterday was a good conversation about server. We tapped into some things that we hadn't talked about in a while. We're talking about relationships. So what happened is Margaret was doing some work. So I'm going to pivot forward into this relationship conversation. And do we have anyone from YouTube or Twitter? People always hear.
We have questions. Oh, hello, butterflies and bugs, and hello, Rick. We have two questions. Mm-hmm. One of them is off topic. Do you want to save the off topic and do it right now, or do you want?
Off topic is it?
Repeating fields off topic.
Okay. What's the question about repeating fields?
What do you do to replace repeating fields? An example is a service calls can run as long as 6 days. We are using repeating fields to reflect this. I'd love to know a solution.
Okay, so that would be a good topic. Who's asking the question? Is it Butterflies and Bugs?
No, that'd be Rick Fosnott.
Margaret, do we have a slot next week we could stick this into? I want to answer. It's easier to demo it. I want to plot that in somewhere, but
we have a topic that I can move around.
Yeah, well, Margaret and I will discuss it. If I can fit it in today, I will. The rub is that you build a table. So you have a parent table, you have a child table, which is actually what we're doing with relationships. So maybe we'll get to it today. Margaret, what's the question we have? Do we have another question about?
We have another one about relationships, but not about. Oh. Well, it's about. Well, I guess today's general relationship screen. Relationships. What is the trick to linking multiple FileMaker databases? Or can you point me to a live stream on that topic?
Yeah, there's a multi-file conversation that goes on in some of our training. It's not something we do that often. I try to keep people away from it, especially if you're at more the beginner or intermediate level. Basically, at the most basic level, you earn file A, and you have a relationship that connects to file B is one way, or you can call a script in file A to file B. There's some permissions in there. Generally, the passwords need to be kind of the same so you don't have problems. So if my password is Rick, or my username is Rick, and my password is 1234, I would have that in both files, because if you're in file A and you call file B, this gets back to the implicit conversation, Margaret, a little bit about that. But if you could do a search and help Butterflies and Bugs with that, that would be good. Because it's really not so much about relationships. That's about, because the two files have to trust each other, kind of a thing. It's a security issue that comes up. And so you turn that on, and once that's on, you're set. It's pretty straightforward. But yes, so yeah, a couple really great questions, folks. Let's talk about relationships real quick. So here is the deal with relationships, and I'm going to answer the repeating field one along the way in flight. So I'm going to kind of minimize this. What I want to show you real quick over here, this was Margaret comes to me and goes, I don't know how to, what she's wanting to do is restrict the records that come through a relationship. So if you're looking at, remember, you can have a relationship and you can have nothing on the layout that has anything to do with the relationship, right? So if you have a relationship, you can put a field there from the other side of the relationship. Remember, there's two sides of the bridge, right? We all remember the bridge, right? It's part of our curriculum. I don't want to get too deep into that part of it, but you have the relationship, the data has to match. You're going to make me do this. Margaret, where is the curriculum at? If I go in here and I do a search.
It should be in Dropbox. If you look at law and disorder, something will pop up.
So here is, at the end of the day, I want to get to this picture of the bridge. This is so important. Okay, so here is the bridge. So we have, where's the graphic of the bridge? Okay, here we go. So, dun, dun, dun. So 2 cliffs. Imagine 2 cliffs in your life. There's a table here, a table here. They can be in 2 different files, Rick Fosnot, but let's just keep it one file for now. This one could be called contacts. This would be called invoices. The deal with the bridge is that there has to be a value in a field over here that matches a value in the field over here. And if that is the case, however that happens, you can script it to happen. Someone could type it in. But if you have the identical value on both sides, the relationship will automatically activate. Imagine some sort of magical, like Marvel universe, swish your hands and Doctor Strange, and suddenly there's a bridge. So here's the bridge. We can see across the bridge. The bridge will only activate if the values match on both sides. That's such a fundamental. So, well, I want to see stuff on one side that's not on the other side. Forget everything that you've heard anywhere else. The value has to match. So if you're over here by yourself and there's multiple people over here that I see on this side, I can come over here and probably zoom into 200% over here. A person here, person here. This is a parent record. Say this is their wayward children, for lack of a better analysis, okay? Or this is a contact, and these are referral people that this person has referred to you. So that's another record here. That's another record here. But this, whatever this bridge support right here, that's the key field. If that matches over here, the bridge activates. It's that simple. Well, how do I filter stuff? Well, you filter stuff by limiting what goes in those key fields. Like, what if I only want to see Richard's people that I saw today? How would I do that? Well, somehow today means a date. So today is July, whatever it is, 19th or 18th or whatever it is. And I have Richard. So it'd be Richard and the date. And then over here, you would have a bunch of are they Richards, and is that the current date? And so the idea is that if you can understand that you have to connect, if that's the pieces that makes that bridge work, then however you fill those bits in, it doesn't matter. So for example, this is what came up with Margaret. She didn't understand. So Margaret goes, well, I have a 3-table scenario. And you're like, well, it's a parent to a child to a grandchild, okay? Doing like that makes sense in an educational, like a classroom environment. It's really generally, performance takes a dump and it causes your head to hurt. I try to keep the relationships only between a parent and a child. And so what ends up happening is that you're like, well, but I need a value over here. Like if I come back up here, this is Sally, this is Fred, they don't match, the relationship dissolves. Doctor Strange, I dissolve the bridge, and then they match. I reappear the bridge, and it's rock solid concrete. You can walk across it. But how do I control that stuff? We ended up having a deal where I said, well, Margaret, you realize you could have a global over here, a global field. And that's what I was drawing over here. It's probably hard to see this. Let me make the screen a little bit bigger here. So I was on the white Margaret. Unfortunately, my daughter has unlimited access to me for the most part. But I use it to help all of you because I realize I haven't taught her something. And we haven't really covered this in a meaningful way. The idea is that if you were on this is your screen, and you're on like some sort of work. So this was this helicopter project. So they have a work order. They're working on the helicopter. It's getting an oil change on the helicopter, right? And you're on the screen, and so this work order is work order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these are, they call them discrepancies, but these are the things that change the oil on the rotor blade, change the oil on the tail rotor, change the oil, change the hydraulics. So there's like 5 or 6 oils they change, and each one of these is a record here. So parent, child. However, what if I wanted to, this is a pretty basic one. That's the key there. Then you'd have the foreign key over here. But what if you wanted to precisely control over here with like a pop-up list somehow? You wanted to precisely control the records that were in the discrepancy, right? Like everything that had to do with changing the oil, because we're going to line the rotor blades, we're going to balance it, We're going to look for cracks or any in the metal, the sheet metal, or any structural problems or whatever. It's like quite a few things. But say we only want to see anything to do with oil, okay? Then how would you do that? It's a subset here. One of the biggest things you can do is remember, all relationships are bidirectional. Generally, they're bidirectional, which means you can set up the bridge over here. Come here. There we go. Over here. And the dude, remember the person over here, he's right here. You see him right here, or her, and you see the people over here. The bridge is bidirectional, so you could put his binoculars down and jump over here, and these people could have binoculars to see back the other way. It's bidirectional generally, and it's useful generally. But what if you put a global field over here? A global field, not a variable, a global field. And maybe a global field with a pop-up value that said the pop-ups were oil, blades, alignment or something, right? So those are like pop-ups. So you can have a global over here on this side. So where we have fields, it's not a name, it's a global, G_portal filter or something. And so you connect it to what is over here, maybe in the description, okay? So you'd have oil. If oil equals oil over here, then that record would show up. So what Margaret hadn't thought about and wasn't doing, first thing she did is she saw the portal. Let me bring back over here. She saw the portal. She clicked over here and went into find mode and couldn't figure out why the results weren't what she was expecting. And that's because somewhere along the lines when we discussed finds and sorts, those have to do with the layout and the table that's connected to the layout. So if you're on a layout in FileMaker, if I open a FileMaker file, probably somewhere, if I can even find a FileMaker file, we have a relationship, right? The idea is that we have this relationship idea, but what if this over here, instead of ID contact, if I zoom in a little bit over here, all right, so we have the contact over here, P is primary key. But what if this was a global that we could set arbitrarily with a script or with a pop-up value or something? Then you could filter and control what was over here. So what Margaret wasn't understanding was that if I go into find mode, you're doing a find against the base table that attached to this layout. So if I go to layout mode, this layout right here is attached to contacts. Well, this has to do with invoices over here. Well, I want to do a find over here for this invoice with da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I want to go to find mode, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it won't work the way you think it does. It does something interesting, but it doesn't work in the way that we're talking about here. Well, that sucks. That's because find is, when you're in a find mode and you're on a layout that's a base layout that's called contacts, for example. This is a contacts layout, and there's probably another layout that has to do with invoices. Perfect sample file for today, okay? If we do a find here, we're doing a find against the invoices, right? If you're over here in contacts and you do a find up for over here and you do a find for invoice number or some date or something, you're not filtering the items in this portal. You're doing a search for that item across all the contact records. And so it works logically, but it's not what you expect. You want to do a find and you want to have it limit. It's like, I want to do a sort. I'm in a sort. So you're on this layout right here and you're in browse mode and I say, I'm going to go do a sort and I want to sort by the things in the portal because you're trying to sort the portal. It doesn't work that way. You have to manipulate the portal. You have to do things a little differently. Finds are in no way attached to portal filtering. You can assign a sort to a portal. They still call that a sort, but you don't see anything over here like find or something like that. There is this filter thing right here, which is kind of what we're after. You can do the filter here or do it at the relationship level. Either one works. So this could say, filter the portal, i.e. find specific records or something, right? That's what that is. So sort is here for the portal, find is here for the portal, but the sort and the find that's out here in the wild, the find and sort up here, have to do with the base table. They don't really are not going to give you what you want in terms of sorting the portal. Margaret, does that make sense what I said?
I think so, yes.
Okay, you're doing more than one thing probably right now, right?
Yes, as you were telling me to do. So,
Yes. Well, taking a break from that. Do we have questions from anyone? Some of us has files that started when that was the only option using a multi-file setup. Yeah, so Ed Burkle's talking about an old file that goes way, way back. So if we want to do a multi-file solution conversation, we could talk about that briefly. Here's the deal, Ed, for you, or not Ed, but for Rick Fosnot. So I'm going to answer your question specifically because we have time. First off, say that we're in Ed's file right here, and I'm going to define a relationship. I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm in the fields. I'm in contacts. I'm going to call it. Did Rick say what he was talking about, what he was tracking, something specifically, like the numbers of?
a service call that can run as long as 6 days. So I don't quite know what that translates to, but like, I
Let's
guess.
just say a service call. So back in the old days, you could define, before there were really relationships, you could define these things called repeating fields. And so you could have this thing called a service call, okay? And service call date, and then I could create it. And I see things flashing over here next to me, Margaret, but I'm not looking at them because I'm trying to stay on track. If you could look at that, that'd be great. I'm going to set the repetitions up for 10 repetitions. I got 10 a day. Then I have service call description, okay? And I'm going to say create an option and storage. I'm going to have 10 of those. And then I can say service call hours, okay? I'm going to say I'm going to create that and put that in here. So storage, I have 10 in there. So we have date, and so I'm just going to set these up. So we're in the screen right here. I'm going to make it a little bit taller. So the repetitions are going sideways. I'm going to select all three. I'm going to see if I can specify somewhere in the right over here. I don't do this enough. Where is it? The repetitions. Here we go. Show rep. So select the field. If repetition is specific, once again, these are, it's a one-dimensional array for those of you who are engineering math background. We're talking about a one-dimensional array. And so it's going to show 1 through 10. We can show up to 10 or less than 10, but we can't show more than 10 because 10 is what we told the database it had to have. We can show them sideways or vertically. So I'm going to say vertically. So then suddenly, if I have the hours, I have the description, I have the date, and I line these up, this starts to look a whole lot like a portal. You're like, really? Yeah, because a portal looks a lot like this, right? Because on the side, you have this, it looks like an invoice, right? If I go to browse mode, so then you're over here and like, I have today's date, and then a description, installed Weasel Whacker Model 5, and it took 2 hours to do, okay? So say that you guys have a database. It was created by someone else, and they were doing this. And maybe it works fine, then leave it alone, because repeating fields are still supported in FileMaker. They're not going to go anywhere. So then, but then, we have this date over here, and before long, you have this Weasel Whacker this, and then 4 hour. Oh, let me change that so it's something different. And then we have another date of like, back in May or June. Let's say May 23rd, 24. It was the back then we kind of screwed up. We have the simple Weasel Whacker install 1 hour, and then they install the upgraded up here because it's after that, right? Upgraded. Now here's the rub. One of the things that goes on. You're like, well, really, this happened before this, so I want to put that at the top. Repeating fields don't support that. They're kind of glued into their little boxes. That's bullshit. Okay, I understand this is circa 19 late 80s and 90, 91 technology. This went away in 94 because they built the FileMaker 3 was the first one with relationships that would manipulate and do stuff, right? And so if you have repeating fields, so Rick Fosnett says, how do I convert this? So what we're going to do is I'm going to have the old one right here, old one here. I'm going to convert it and build it over here if that makes any sense. I'm going to go to layout mode. Margaret, do you have this file anywhere else?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm going to trash Ed's file, and I want to be able to, I think there was some good demos in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this over here. I'm going to make it bigger, so we have room. And then I'm going to put a big line down the top so we know where we're going to start, the old and the new. That's big, okay. When FileMaker does, I really wish it wouldn't do that. It's obnoxious. Let's see, style, line, Give me like a 9-point line. Is that gray or is it white? That's kind of, that sucks. Give me something more dramatic and awesome. So here's what we want to do. This is the old way, Rick. We want to build the new way. You're like, well, how do we do that? This data all represents what data that would have been in another table. I can say service date, service description, service call. You're like, okay. And we're in this contact table right here. So I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Manage, Database. I'm going to say, well, these are the tables we have. We have contacts, invoice, C, whatever the hell C is, reports, but we don't have service calls. Now I'm doing this in the same file, could be a separate file, I can't spell, D-I-C-E, service call. Okay, I'm going to create that. So then Claris promptly gives me the default fields, which I hate, deleted, they're gone, thank you very much. And then I know that I need, we know we need these three fields over here for sure, right? So you've got service date, service description, service call hours. So I can put the word service in there, but I'm in a service table. So I don't know if I should include the word service, but I'll just, for simplicity right now, service, date, make it a date field, technically. I don't know that it really matters. The date, the field definition of dates over here, I'm pointing my finger. You can't see me pointing my finger. See that right there? I'm pointing at the date. That should be, that and that over here ideally would be the same, right? So if you have date or a timestamp or a date or number field, calculation, whatever, they should be defined kind of the same way. I just threw this together. So we got date, it's a date over there. I'll put it as text right now just because I don't want to get a spicy demo to get excessively spicy. So we got service, description, I can't spell, everyone is OCD, just go with it. Service, I'm going to say time that it took up. So now the name here is a little different, but is that a problem for us? Because we have over here, we come over here, I'm going to say, okay. Now, here is the rub with this that we have is that we need, theoretically, we're going to want to connect the service call to the contact. And so you'd know it by the ID of the contact. Now, I know from a business side, this doesn't make sense. You'd have a project or an invoice. You'd have the service calls against that. I guess you could have service calls against a person, right? I guess, yeah, if you're a cop, right, Ed, like I'm a law enforcement background, or actually law and fire, both, and you're fire. So most time if you keep getting calls about fire hazards, it's a location, it's a business, it's not some dude. But in law enforcement, we got a perp, woo, woo, woo. We're gonna like go and find the perp, he's at the corner and he's selling blow for $100 a kilo or some really like discounted stuff, which is probably fatal. So what we want to do is we're going to say that these are service calls by the police department to go and provide service to a perp. Okay, that sounds interesting. All right, so the problem is we have to have a way of connecting it. So we have the contact. The contact is the perp. So we have probably we would have the contact ID over here, and I would say it's probably going to be a foreign key because the contact ID over on this is going to be the primary key. In fact, it says P there. It probably says P there. I use P just as a shorthand. I really wish I had the little curly P because I never remember what that is, but the curly F is foreign key for me. So we create that. Now we have all the bits that we need, I think. Now I could try to set up the relationship, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm not going to set up the relationship yet. What I want to do, though, is I want to move, if I come over, because we created this new table, there's a service call down here. So what I want to do is get the data. I'm going to put it back in here. Oh, I'm going to put it up here like this in a list view. Man, hang on one second. I just botched that badly. Hang on, let's try this again. Select these right here, make them smaller, put this up here. So I'm going to make it a list view. That way it'll be like less traumatic for everyone. And I keep doing it backwards because I'm dumb. That one there, and then the ID contact. So you kind of get an idea. So the idea is, so you can see where this is going to go. If I have 3 or 5 or 100 lines on the other side, we're going to have those lines over here. Now, here's the interesting part, and I'm going to say view it as a list, and there's no records right now. So you could come over here, and you're like, well, you know, we could just type it in manually. right? So I come over to contacts and and we come over here to wherever the service call was. It was the last record. And I can start copy and paste and copy and paste and copy and paste and copy and paste back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But it's better if you could do an import, because FileMaker made a little caveat for the import process for people who had to convert. Rick, they were thinking about you back in 1994-5 when actually even before that, back early in FileMaker Pro 1, they built it so you could take these out of here and break them across through an import to different records. So we target these fields and we say it's going to be the source here, but when it gets over here, it's going to break them apart into individual fields. And that's how you solve this problem. Very, very important. So I'm going to say manage, no, I want to do an import. Import records from file. We want our own file. Eds, hit open. Okay, so we're going to add records from the source to the target. Right on. Add or update or replace is different. Okay. Then we want to say import options. First I guess we have to target some. So we have service. Okay, so down here should be the service date, and then this one is service company contact name. These are the names in the context field. So I need all the service ones. So that, I don't want that. I got the wrong one. Don't import. I want to come down here to service date and import this field into, so there we go. So service, so now we're aligning the repeating fields to the new table that we created. So import, I go to service description, and then we have the hours. Now notice the names are not going to be the same. Is that a problem? Not really, okay? The other thing we're going to do is we're going to say the ID contact primary. We're going to import that across to the foreign key. So here's the deal. All this looks normal except for this one thing is lit up because it knows that we have repeating fields. And it says, keep the values in the original record. So if there's one record here, it creates one record over here. Or you could say split the values. So if there's three, if you have 5 records over here, but each of them have 4 or 5 repeating fields, and you're going to end up with 15 over here. I only have 3 repetitions in one record. So we're going to do an import over here. But when it hits, and the first 4 contacts don't have any data in them, right? The first 4 contacts don't have any data, but the one contact does. So you'll see what happens. So I'm going to say import 1, 2, 3, go. And it said it added 6. Okay, so it added one blank one for all these other ones. So if you're importing, even though you don't have a value in here, you're still going to get one record that's going to force its way across. Okay, but then when it hit this one repeating, it's on contact A05. It kept going, ching, 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 ching. So now we basically have moved the data out. So now we can activate the relationship. So I go file. Rick Fosnot, you better be following me. If you fall asleep, I'm going to be very unhappy. Relationships. Contacts over here. I want to put their service call right here. I'm going to say ID contact foreign to ID contact primary. I say okay. I'm going to put a layout mode, left hand, portal down the page, which is this button right here. See, it does that really fast. See that? So aggravating. I hate it when it does that. All right, there we go. It says what portal, what data? Give me the data from the service call, okay? And I didn't name it all fancy. Trust me, it's the right one we want. And I'm going to come over here and I want those 3 right there. Move them over. Say okay. So I come over here and it hasn't put the labels in there, which kind of sucks a little bit. But largely at the end of the day, this stuff should match is what this should do. I'm going to go to browse mode and we're on record here. It doesn't have anything. I go to record 2, nothing. If I go to record 4, ding, that data is going to match, okay? So now we moved it over here. Now it's in a separate table. We can sort this. We can reorder them. We could duplicate one here and then do with it, right? Just run a duplicate and then reassign it or do whatever. We could do a million different things with it over here like this because these can be separated and munged and pushed around and resorted and refactored. Over here, these things are, it's like, what is that one movie that the guy's in the shower, he's kind of he's in the shower, and the other cops, they take his shampoo out and they put super glue in there, some epoxy super glue in there where shampoo is. So he squirts it on his head, he's gluing his head. He's glued together. His fingers are stuck. That is your repeating field. They're stuck together forever, and they cannot be sorted and moved and munged and totaled and stuff. They're all stuck. I mean, you could total them as long as you take the entire total. Well, I only want the ones from today. Can't do that repeating field. I only want the ones from last week. Can't do that. If you break it apart and then follow our techniques, that's how you break it apart. So it looks the same. Well, I want more than 3. What if I want more than 10? What if I want to be able to have it scroll up and down and put more in? No, you can't do that repeating fields. Repeating fields is why people originally thought FileMaker was flat file, because it was flat file back in the Pony Express. When the Pony Express came across, we were feeding it hay, walked to school, barefoot, no shoes in the snow, 5 miles each way uphill. It was flat file. That's what it was. It was flat file. These days, it's a relational database. Oh, I can't believe it's relational. It's not Oracle. No, it's Apple, and Apple wanted a relational database, and Apple uses this stuff all over the place. Flat file was a thing once upon a time. Horses pulling carriages was the preferred transportation one time. Then we got cars that ran on gasoline. Then we have cars that run on electric. Then we're going to have cars that run on hydrogen, which will replace most of the petroleum, but you'll still put liquid in the car and pay someone to put it in there, and then it'll run on this liquid hydrogen stuff. So there's a progression of all this tech. AI will come in, but AI is not going to solve all your problems for you. It'll help draw connections and stuff. AI is never going to say, well, AI is never going to do what I just did and be able to draw the conclusions and educate you in a meaningful way. AI is smart math is what it is. We've done that AI stuff before. It's the next great thing. Kinda. We're going to have flying cars. Dude, we can't even have cars that run themselves right now in San Francisco. They keep running people down. They just banned a bunch of automotive AI cars from San Francisco. They were like driving around circles, screwing shit up, or running people down. But it's coming. Claris is working on it. It's going to get better. But this is like the fundamentals of breathing. It's like, breathe. All right, what are you using? Oxygen. Okay, great. That's what this stuff is. This is core fundamentals of, and it's not just FileMaker, it's a relational database. Now, importing the flat file data and breaking it apart into records in a relational database, the little part here that's really specific to FileMaker that's kind of unique, which makes it awesome, is the import option with the thingy at the bottom, which was, if I do it here, it's this option right here. And it's not illuminated until it knows that you're thinking about a repeating field on the source side. It doesn't come on, but it's down there waiting for you. That is cool stuff.
I have done dumb relationship questions. Are you ready?
So, question, Margaret, go ahead.
Can we talk about indexing and relationships? Because I didn't really totally understand how those were connected to until I couldn't find why the relationship wouldn't work.
Let's give everyone the basic understanding of what indexing are. I could give you the technical under the hood part of the indexing, and if you're really a professional FileMaker developer that works every day, all day, every day, and you're such a bad, then we could get into the technical part of it. But for anyone who's, all of you probably don't really need to know how the indexes are built. Understand that they are a magical black box. Technically, if I go into an index, you probably seen Nick do this once upon a time. If I open the database up, just Margaret, can you like hum a song for a second while I need to go to DBW4 and I need to look for the dead bird database. People go, what's a dead bird database? And it wants that. But dead bird is where it's like when your cat comes to you and it brings you dead birds and dead mice. We had engineers, they still do this. They invent something, they show it to the boss, and the boss pets them on the head, says, good job. And I don't want to throw it away, but I'm not sure what to do with a dead animal that they bring to me. It's some sort of sample file or something, and it's like, God, that's really amazing. What do you do with that? So it's like a junk drawer. Imagine an unlimited sized junk drawer of random stupid FileMaker sample, like this Ed Burkle file, not quite good enough to make it to dead bird, but that kind of like random stuff that you have. So in there we have a little demo of, it's an animated GIF. Margaret, if you want to open it up on my computer, look for index, and you'll see an animated GIF of how an index works. But at the end of the day, I'm going to wave my hands over here. So if we have back this relationship over here, the word, so there's a field over here, say it's the first name, a field over here, Sally. An index is a mathematical representation of that field, okay? And the math can be very sophisticated. It's like the AI stuff. People, if you watch our AI training, oh, AI is it's sentient, it's self-aware. No, it's not. I haven't seen any AI that's remotely would pass the self-aware test. It's smart math. We discussed this, and when I finally figured out what it was, it's very smart math. It's like once again like a Marvel movie where they say, well, there's the first dimension and second and 3 dimensions in space, and fourth dimension is time. So you have 3 space, and then you have time as you go forward in time. Well, we have 1,536 dimensions, and I'm like, holy shit, how do you even imagine that? You can't think about it. You have to just put it in a black box. It just is, okay? And so that's what relationship, what an index is. It's driven by a black box of smart math. And so when you're in FileMaker and you say, I'm going to go into field definitions, I'm going to go over here to contact, it doesn't particularly matter. Here is the service state field. And I say options, and I say indexing, and hard for me to zoom in on this so you can see it, but it says indexing improves the performance for some operations like finds and supports functionality like it says relational joins, but a relational connection. Kink, kink, and some other and then over here should say and some other okay. The downside to indexing is that it's a black box that is activated. So if you say turn on, it says indexing, it said black box. Black box is a military term for some secret in a box, and power goes in one side and something comes out the other side, and you don't know how they made it. It's like sausage. A pig farm sausage production facility is a black box most of us never want to see. Pigs go in one side and tasty sausage comes out the other side. A pretty horrible business from a animal perspective, right? But from a sausage perspective, it's tasty. And so I'm not passing judgment, it just is, okay? But it's a black box. We don't know what's in there. In that case, we don't want to know what's in there, right? It's like a nuclear bomb. Power goes in one side, an explosion comes out the other side. How that happened? A, it's classified. B, they can't tell you. And C, they're going to put it in something and disguise it. So as a pilot, as an Army pilot, I was never going to shoot those, but Air Force pilots were training that you might have to drop those, okay? How does that work? Well, you put power in, you put a secret coding, you have all these safeties so someone doesn't steal it and blow it up. It just works. That's what this index is. You just turn on. So you can set minimal or all, doesn't matter. This is a one kind of black box. This is another black box. This checkbox right here says turn on the black box as necessary. So if FileMaker detects it needs it, it will turn it on for you. The black box, so right now it doesn't exist over here. Okay, say I have 1 million records in here. And for this field, and the black boxes are specific to a field. An index is specific to a field. If I turn it on, right, I come over here and I double click it and I turn this on. One of these, and one's a smaller black box, one's a bigger black box. It doesn't particularly matter. If you don't know what you're doing, just set all, okay? Or just leave it to automatic. And what FileMaker does, it takes every value in there and it munges it and it processes it and it does smart math with it. Like way smarter than probably most of us. Probably except one of you has probably a PhD in math and you're laughing at me. True. I'm an engineer, so I use math. I don't invent new math. Okay, so mathematicians give it to me. I use it. But it's very advanced stuff. And what it allows it to do is to search and parse and chew on it at high speed. They do some things in there that allow them to dig through it at high speed. And so the index is used for a find command to find something. So I'm doing a search for Richard Carlton in this paragraph. You do a search on 1,000,000 records and it comes back in 5 seconds or 2 seconds or 1 second or half a second. That's like very fast to search to 1,000,000 records, okay? It's not using your real field. It's using the black box, which looked at every value of every field and created a magical thing inside the black box. And then FileMaker says, hey, we've got a black box over here. I'm going to do a search in there. It's going to make the user look like I'm looking in the real name field for Richard. I'm actually going to look in the secret hidden black box. Now, the downside of the black box, the black box is created with special math. It makes your file bigger. Well, how much bigger? Well, I've got a 10 megabyte file now. It's 12 megabytes. No one gives it. But if you go back to Nick's conversation of last week, or earlier this week, he had millions and millions and millions of records. So suddenly turning this on for a field could be a real big problem. In fact, I think Nick was talking about where he would try to use like number fields in 0 and 1 because the math on 0 and 1 is very basic. If you don't have the black box turned on, then FileMaker has to really rudimentarily dig through the relationship or dig through the calculation or dig through the find, and it's slow. In fact, relationships generally don't work without the indexing on, right, on the key fields, at least on the child field. People say, well, Richard, a little bit ago we talked about a global on one side and on the parent side, and that's not indexed. Correct. So in a case where you have a global on one side, the global side doesn't have to be indexed because there's only one value in there, so it doesn't have to think about it. But that means that relationship is generally not bidirectional. It's, from the global side downhill from all of our perspectives. I'm sure if you're Todd Geist or someone brilliant, Wim DeCourt, you could do some really crazy stuff with that, even Kyle Williams on a crazy day. Ah, here we go. This is the graphic right here. So let me bring this up. I'm going to show this to you folks. This will blow your minds. So what this is it's showing you different, when we talk about the black box, these are different mathematical formula created by really smart people. My black box is 10% faster than your black box, blah, 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 right? Like Jacob Taylor, like super smart stuff. And so we only see the black box. We say we want to sort random values. So this is an intersection formula. You see how long it takes to do this selection one. Watch this one right here. See, that's wherever the cursor's at, FileMaker is thinking about, it's actually evaluating the values. But if you do some of these, like we go over here to heap or something, see how it's vibrating and going, and it does it pretty quick. And so what these are different kinds of indexes. This is what Claris is doing under the hood when you do indexing. They're finding different ways of representing the data. So then instead of like the very slow way of solving the data, this is like an indexed find, see how slow it is. But if you watch over here, it's almost like done, right? And then this one over here is grinding away forever. And that's the difference in these things. And so that's what the smart math is doing. In this case, it's doing a sort, doing sorts better, faster. But that's basically what this is. So these names right here represent different mathematical formula that are processing a pile of records. So you're sorting random records, you're sorting nearly sorted records, you're sorting records that reverse. So you see, watch this one, the records will all be, backwards. See this? So now it's trying to revert them and pile them backwards. And so certain algorithms are better for certain situations. So how do you know which one to use? Smart people stuff. Not stuff we worry about. All we know is we turn indexing on and Claris makes the product better. Every time FileMaker comes out, it goes faster. Sometimes it's a little faster, sometimes it's a lot faster. From FileMaker 11 or 12 or even back to the modern version, it's probably 500 to 600% faster at least. It's shockingly faster. This is just a small part of it. So when you turn on indexing, it's going to take those field values and it's going to prearrange them under the hood, so it's able to do this kind of smart math and find stuff. Find the related fields across a portal. Perform a find command. Find all the Richards in a paragraph of text. How long does that take? There's all the stuff that Nick's been dealing with. This is the under the hood stuff that Nick implied you probably didn't spend too much time talking about. It's a Friday kind of conversation. You see this, you want to like have a beer in one hand? Glad I didn't have to get my PhD in that. Right?
And basically, relationships don't work without them being turned on, right? It doesn't matter what fields you've connected if they're not
It
both
has to be on the
indexed.
child side. It has to be on the child side.
Okay, why?
To the
What's the
global,
logic
stop,
for that?
stop, 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 stop. Relationships. So say we're up here. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on this. Give me a second. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. Say that this field right here is not ID contact. It's G underscore. It's like the G global field. Like Margaret, you did this with BVA. Okay. Can you turn on indexing on a global field? No. How many value? Why does indexing exist? So FileMaker can find and sort this fast. Well, there's only one value in the global. What does it have to do? It doesn't have to do. It's already done. It's
Oh,
one value.
okay, got it.
There's no need for an index. But down here, if you want these to be displayed on this side through here, it's going to see this one value here. It doesn't have to be indexed. It's going to go down here, and these have to be indexed because it's going to search for the indexes, just like that graphic. It's going to be over here. How many sides? Match Richard. You're panting very fast. Ding, it's done.
Okay, got it. So it needs the index on the child side so it can
It
when you
has to have the
find.
index where it's doing the work. And so if you have a global on one side, yeah, it needs that. Now, what if you have a text field on either side? Yeah, then you're going to have a global or a index field. Well, I have a calculation. Calculations, if you want them to be up to date on screen, we don't have indexing on, right? But indexing allows you to do finds faster, right? So you can't really use calculations, unindexed calculations for a relationship because unindexed calculations, A, never get updated, and B, they're not fast,
Yeah, I
right?
think that was the problem I had the other
Or
day.
indexed. Index calculation does not know its source data has changed, right? Does that make sense? So if you have a calculation, like I make a calculation that says, especially if it's based upon a get function, a calculation, today's date with a sentence. Okay, so it's today's date. Okay, I write a sentence. Today, calculation field text. Today's date is, in quotes, and then I put and, close quote, ampersand, get today's date. I put all that in there. And you put it in FileMaker as a calculation field, okay? Here we go. I'm going to define this right here. Sentence with today's date. I spell those words differently because I think they're reserved words. I'm going to say calculation field, create. Okay. On this day, I declared I was a candidate for dog catcher. You guys all thought I would say president. Candidate for dog catcher. Okay. And I want a get function. Get current date. Now, here's the rub. We say, okay. You say calculation options. It needs to be text. Number one. Two, one repetition. Yeah, we're not doing repeating fields. We did that already. Do not value. You don't have to worry about that. You say, storage options right here. There's your little calc right here. Do not store the calculation results. Recalculate when needed. No, I want it indexed. Okay, great. So here's the rub. We say, okay. Is it unhappy? No, there it goes. We hit okay. So here's the rub with this sentence right here, okay? When tomorrow comes, this won't, like this calculation right here is like, when we show this screen to you, calculation goes, okay, here's the formula. I've already created and saved and indexed the value. It's a stored calculation, which means it can be indexed, but it's stored. So I calculated it, I saved it in the FMP12 file. Tomorrow comes. FileMaker goes, hey, there's this calculation. I've already calculated it, stored in here. And the FileMaker goes, the layout engine goes, cool, put it on the screen. And you're like, well, hey, dude, tomorrow's a different day. FileMaker's like, how do I know what day it is? Or what was in the calculation? So, well, I want the calculation to always be up to date. So then what you do, tell FileMaker's like, every time you put it on screen, I want you to calculate it and show it to me, and then forget about it. Because that way, tomorrow when I ask you for it, you won't give me the about how you remember it from the day before because it was wrong. So does that make sense what I'm saying? So today is 7/19. Tomorrow, it's still going to say 7/19. And the day after that, it'll say 719. That can't be right. FileMaker calculations are not automatically notified when related data or get functions change. Well, what's the user's name? Get Fred, get username, Fred. It doesn't know it needs to do that. So what you have to do is you go into field definitions and you say, do not remember the values you calculate. Do not remember the stuff from yesterday or the day before. I don't want it. Every time it brings it up, I want you to give me fresh, tasty data. What's that? Fast times at Ridgemont High. I want tasty waves. I want fresh and tasty waves. So I want fresh data. Okay. So now every time it does this, it's calculating it. But that's slower. Yeah, it's slower, but the data is accurate. If it's not saved, it can't be indexed, which means you can't use this in a relationship. So this gets back into calculations and using calculated values in a relationship. You could use them on the parent side, right? Then it's like locked into that one, but it can't use it on the child side where it's bringing the data through from the child side to the parent side. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, FileMaker's like a lot of people. It's like Margaret, all right, my other daughter, she lives at home with me. I said, Sarah, you're here, you live here, I pay for the house, whatever. Every other day, I need you to vacuum the floor. And so Sarah comes in and she goes, and I go, have you vacuumed the floor? Sarah says, yes, I vacuumed the floor. In Sarah's case, that's a stored calculation. She vacuumed it days ago, right? Days ago, but hasn't vacuumed it since. But she did vacuum it. She remembers vacuuming it. And as far as she's concerned, it's good. Now, if I tell Sarah, unstore the calculation, then that would cause Sarah to say, it shouldn't be vacuumed, and Sarah actually checks the floor for dirt. If dirt is there, run the vacuum process. It forces a check on the get function. Get floor dirt level. If it's greater than 5, 0 is clean, 10 is what's your dirt level? Get dirt level. Above 5, run vacuum. But if you store it, then she remembers once upon a time that number and it saves it in there. That's it.
Which I think is a good refresher because that topic always sends people for loops.
There's Labo 404, right? So he talks about SQL, drop, then create. Yeah, so you can tell it programmatically to create the index for you. But the SQL is the same way. Is there an index? Yes. Is there not an index? Well, you need one. Turn it on automatically, or you code it and tell it to do it. There's no script step in FileMaker to do it. It's they kind of abstract that out of there a little bit for you. You can get to it if you want to. In fact, although in newer versions, that was who was talking about? They want to be able to dump Vince Bonanno was talking about telling FileMaker to dump the index and rebuild it through scripting. I was like, wow, that'd be cool. Anyway, so, all right, you guys have a good weekend. I appreciate it. Send emails to support@rcconsulting.com. Support@rcconsulting.com. Nick will be back on Monday with web direct shenanigans. We greatly appreciate it. All right? See you.